Good morning to all of you. My name is Mimi, and I'd like to introduce the rest of my teammates, Laura and Sophie, who have been very, very, very great. And I'm so proud and happy to be part of this team. Work was divided among each member, but we all supported ourselves immensely. No one was left behind, so we were just like interfering into each other's work and helping out to be able to have the results that we visioned. Our product is the Foodie Planner, and is meant for people who are interested into eating healthy, but are not so skilled in coming up with recipes or how to even prepare them. So Foodie Planner has features like a recipe based on available ingredients, meal planner, shopping list, and instructions. So basically, making home cooking super easy for anyone who is interested or want to be into the healthy cooking lifestyle. We use technologies like Node.js and Express for back end. And then for our front end, we use React Framework, we use React Router, and then we use Material UI for our design. Our tech stack was external API, which we took from an open source called Spoonacular for that. And our workflow was used to Git, which I personally don't like. I hate Git right now because of Git conflict. And that's just because I have not mastered the skill of using it very well. But all glory goes to Sophia, who is the queen. Like, she's the queen and king of Git. So yeah, that glory goes to her. Our project management tool, we started with Trello, but later on we decided to migrate to Notion because it was more efficient and it was well designed for tech project management, if you ask me. So that is where we organize all our schedule, our daily code review, what we have to do, what is already done, and it really, really, really helped. The idea of creating this product was inspired by our love for healthy eating, basically. And the planning stage, we started from brainstorming and decision making on what product to build. And once we decided on what to build, we started from the architecture diagram, of which I would like to share my screen and show them. So here we have our architecture diagram that shows that we take our external API and back to the Node.js and Express, and then to React front end and to the user's computer. And then here is a diagram of our user flow, of which my colleague will explain to you in brief. And then we have the API route design also here, and then the mock-up. And basically, this is the planning stage that was designed for this. And at this point, without much to say, I would like to introduce my teammate, Lara, to take up from here and do a brief explanation of the codes and the demo of our application. Lara.
Hello, I'm here. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen so you can see the app. Okay, so here's the app that has like two main features. One will be to create your weekly meal planner, and the other one to get recipe ideas from the ingredients that you've got at home. Okay, so here you can choose some options like the diet, like if you got any intolerances, or any ingredient you don't like and you want to exclude, or any type of cuisine. And then when you submit, you get this pop-up modal that you can access the meal planner, or you can close it again and maybe change any other options. So then when you submit and you get the meal planner, it displays like kind of grid with all the days of the week and the meals that you can cook. And then if you click on them, you get access to the recipe itself, so that you can cook it at home. Okay. And from here, another feature is that you can press on Get Shopping List, and then it generates, well, it takes a while to look for all the ingredients you need to cook all the recipes for all the week, and then displays like the whole list with the quantities and so that then you can just go to the supermarket and buy everything. Okay, so well, now Sophie can explain the other feature if you want, Sophie. Okay, and then I'll get back to explain the code.
Sorry, always best to unmute before you share screen. Thank you, Laura. So I'm going to share my screen and take you through the user flow. As we established, we already have another user story, which is based on the ingredients that you already have at home. We can add them to the list here on the landing page. So I don't know, has anyone got any ideas? Anything you have at home at the moment that you want to get rid of? Anyone?
Asparagus.
Oh, good one. Okay, let's try it.
Bananas. Chickpeas.
Chickpeas, okay. Keep them coming. So we mix. Let's see what it brings back. I'm intrigued. Okay, that's a thing.
Ooh.
So we have a whole feed of recipes based on the ingredients that you have at home. As you can see, we have the grid, but we also want to expand on the future features. So we would think that the user would like to have an account and also have maybe a saved list of favorite recipes, have the ability to share those recipes to popular messaging apps like WhatsApp or Telegram, which is why we sort of did a visualization here of how that would look in the next iteration. So yeah, let's go for a recipe. I'm thinking the chickpea breakfast. It's pretty random, but we can click on that and it should render the ingredients. So it tells you the quantities, the list of ingredients needed, and the breakdown of steps. And yeah, I think what was most challenging about this particular component was actually creating, of course, the endpoints for the external API, but then receiving the parameters that were needed as per the constraints of each list of the input types here. And yeah, Laura, I don't know if you want to actually, do you want to show your code for the meal planner so that we can?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so, right. Well, first, you see my code right now? The screen?
Yeah.
Right. So we used, well, React Route to create, in the app.js, to create a single page application. So, well, here you can see all the different components. And so the landing page is the one that, well, that has the two inputs, no? And well, at the beginning, you can see this is because we use the material UI, so we imported a lot of components from there. And here it was challenging because the fetch included like 4 parameters. So the way to extract that from the input was quite a bit challenging, but yeah. And then, well, this is all the inputs and so on. And okay, then for the meal planner, we created a grid, and here there was a challenging part because to display the images in this API, where is it? Here, you need to use this URL, and then from the ID of the recipe, and also it depends on the extension of the image file. So we had to grab this extension and save it, because the one were PNG or others JPG or something like that. No, so not all the images were displaying, and well, in this way it was solved. And then the shopping list, it was the most challenging one, I think. I mean, the design is simpler, so, but there's a lot of work in the background. We had to create an asynchronous function, because the thing was that the fetch request, the way it works is like it grabs the ingredients from a recipe, and it gets the ingredients for every recipe. So we had to create a for loop, so that, because there were 21 recipes for the whole week, to extract all the ingredients for all of the 21 recipes, and then store them. And then we had to create other functions because there were duplicate ingredients. And there was also a part that now it's uncommented because it wasn't working properly, but almost. Still has to fix, like to add the amounts of the ingredients that are repeated, and then to update and have a list without repeated ingredients. And well, all this took a lot of time, all the for loop and so that's why we created this loading progress circle that was happening while all this asynchronous function was going on, and then at the end it displays the data. And I think that's for it. See, Sophie, you can explain the rest of the code.
Yeah, so essentially it was like learning a whole new language, just working with an external API. It was like battling with a troublesome child, but eventually we became fluent with it. And what was cool about that was the fact that, I think, maybe I'm wrong, but if you can work with one external API, you can work with a dozen, because generally it's a skill of learning how to read documentation and then implement it. What we did with the recipe browser, so the grid view component, we essentially did a fetch request to return all the ingredients by the constraints of, return all the recipes by the constraints of the ingredients that we selected in the list. So the chickpeas, the asparagus, that was what filtered the recipes that were on display. We then mapped each of those into the grid, and we then pulled those params, or those parameters, from that component into the recipe instructions view, so that we could then do a deep dive into the data and render what we wanted to render as in the instructions and the ingredients. The problem with that was the design of the API. It was something that Paulina picked up on before about nested data structures or complex data structures. They're really problematic. It takes a while of getting used to fetching something that's nested in an array and an object and properties, and it's time consuming, but as soon as you get to the data that you need, it's almost like the lights suddenly come on and suddenly everything works. So that's a really rewarding part of complex data structures. Yeah, and there's not actually, I mean, the code itself is very simple. So it's just a number of for loops, which you guys are all familiar with. And we kept it super simple with one fetch request, which was for the ingredients. And one of the things that took the most time for us was also working with material. We decided to use material based off I was actually inspired by the previous cohort, and one of the groups used Material UI, and I suggested that we use this for our project because it seemed really intuitive. And so getting to grips with that, we spent a lot of our time just manipulating components, importing them, and going through a kind of design process, being like, okay, Material provides templates which you can feasibly use to bootstrap a project, but there was a trade-off with understanding those templates and then building from the ground up and actually being able to override things that were, let's say, causing problems in the code. So it was a really good exercise in terms of scaling down, building components from the ground up, and then being able to have full control, be able to manipulate things in a front-end design process perspective. So yeah, that's it.